Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the kitchen. I'm Jo Michaels, the baking author, and today we're baking. How exciting is that? Okay, so we're going to make coffee rolls. Now, these rolls taste like coffee. They're not to have with coffee, but they're delicious with coffee. They're going to make me crave coffee. Okay, rather than prattle on, I'm going to get going here. There's a few things that you need to have my recipe on a little stand, but I'm going to read it to you really quickly. For the dough, you're going to want a cup of warm milk, just hand warm, where it just feels just barely warm when you touch it. 4 ounces of espresso that you have cooled, 2.5 tablespoons of yeast, 1/3 of a cup of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 egg, 5 cups of all-purpose flour, but I'm using bread flour so I get a softer roll, and a teaspoon of coarse salt. I'm also going to throw in about a tablespoon of espresso powder. I really like that strong coffee flavor in my coffee rolls. So for the filling, you're going to need 1/4 of a cup of butter. You're going to melt it, then cool it. 1/2 cup of packed light brown sugar, which I have in the bowl over there. 2 tablespoons of instant coffee. I just have the Nescafe. It's cheap, but it works. And 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon. For the glaze, we're going to glaze them after they come out and cool. You want 2 cups of powdered sugar, 1 tablespoon of espresso powder, and some milk. The milk we're just going to dribble in and whisk till we get the right consistency. So here we go. We're going to add the sugar and the yeast to our milk in our bowl. And then we're going to let it sit until it gets happy. Now you can use cold milk if you're afraid to warm it too much. It will still rise, it just takes a little bit longer. You start with just a slightly warm milk. And it's dripping. Of course it is. My yeast, my tablespoon, and my sugar. 1/3 of a cup of sugar. It's just granulated sugar. You can use cane sugar. It gives it a deeper flavor, a little bit earthier. Doesn't make it any sweeter. So if someone told you that, they lied. It does have a very unique flavor though. Okay, so there's 1/3 cup of sugar. Now I can put my sugar out of the way. The difference between all-purpose flour and bread flour is the bread flour is just going to give you a little bit of a lighter crumb. It's just softer flour, more finely milled. So now I'm going to add my 2.5 tablespoons of yeast. I just kind of eyeball that last half. It's going to rise, I promise, as long as we don't dump the salt in there too. And just give that a little stir around so it kind of mixes with the milk. Now while I'm waiting on that to get happy or foam, I am going to go ahead and grease my bowl so I'm ready to go when it's ready to be put in. Have a napkin, grab some Crisco. I really do prefer Crisco for this job. Just tossed my old napkin yesterday, a little too much. So I'm going to throw this one back into the Crisco pan or Crisco bowl when I'm done. And make sure you grease all the way up the sides. This is a big bowl, you guys. Like, it's very big. But as long as you have something that will hold about double your dough, you'll be fine. I also have rising containers. They're actually bread proofing containers, and they're very slippery inside. So you don't have to put anything on those if you don't want to. Just regular Crisco. Crisco is a use all, need all. That's getting crazy. I'm going to put my sugar away. Boom. Yes, I have cabinets under here. And I'm going to move my mixer over so you guys can see better. Take my spoon and knife and stick it in my flour for a minute. I'm going to go pop this yeast back in the fridge. Always keep your yeast in the fridge if you can. It actually extends the life, but don't put it in the freezer because it'll kill it. I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, I'm back. My yeast is foamy in my bowl now. It's been a few minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and add in my egg. I don't like to crack the egg right in there because a lot of times I get shell everywhere. So I'm going to crack it into my mixing cup. And no shell today. I'm just going to plop it right in there with the yeast and sugar. Now I have egg on my hand. Gross. It's okay, that's what an apron is for, right? Wipe your hands clean. It's to protect your clothes, but I use it for both. So, just gonna get in here with my spatula and break that egg up a little bit. That's my stomach. It smells what's going on in this bowl and it likes it, so it wants some. Now me, I start with about 2 cups of flour just in my bowl. Then I put in my salt, then I throw it on the mixer. It's just a personal preference. You can do, just throw it on the mixer and mix your flour in as you want. And I always spoon and level my flour. I do not dip because dipping compresses it. You get a little more than a cup. And you can also weigh it. I do have a kitchen scale. It was not super expensive. I will link it for you if you decide you want to go with weight. It is a more accurate measure. But I am content to just use cups. I'm going to use 5 total cups of this flour. And there's 2 cups in. And I'm just going to mix that around real quick. Butter and things are not going in yet. I am going to add my vanilla when I add my salt here in just a minute. And then I'm going to let it rest so that flour can soak up some of that moisture for just a hair of a moment. Okay, your mixture should be kind of gloppy and kind of chunky, like that, like a chunky boy. So we're going to go ahead and put our vanilla in, and that's a teaspoon. Again, I don't want to measure over my bowl, so I'm going to measure over this little cup. There's 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now my teaspoon is damp and I'm going to have to dry it before I stick it in my salt. Should have done that the other way around. I usually do, but I wasn't thinking. I usually use a tablespoon of salt in most of my bread. Go figure. Okay, dried it. And a teaspoon of coarse salt. If you're using fine salt, use half as much. So about a half a teaspoon. That's just for regular salt. And I don't think I need my teaspoon anymore. So I'm going to dump it in the bowl to be washed. Some dead yeast is good for flavor, but you don't want it all to die or your bread will not rise. So I have 4 ounces of espresso. It's about 2 shots. I made it earlier. I've let it cool. I'm going to dump that in there with my next cup of flour. So 1 more cup of flour, and then we're going to let it sit for a little bit. It smells so good. I wish they had smell-o-vision to be able to share this. It's making me want a cup of coffee and a coffee roll right now, which is sad because this won't be ready for a number of hours. Okay, my dough has turned this nice dark brown color, and we're just going to leave it here to sit and mix and get happy for just a few minutes. I am going to throw that damp towel on top so it doesn't dry out at all. Oh, before I do that, it should kind of look like that. It's brown, dark brown and goopy, and it smells divine. So while I wait on this, I'm going to do a little cleanup and I will be right back with you guys. Okay? Okay, I'm back. Now this has been resting for about 5 minutes and it has absorbed some of that flour or liquid into that flour. I'm going to go ahead and add my tablespoon of espresso powder. Then we're going to toss this bad boy on the mixer. I really like the flavor this gives it. So delicious. And it also is going in the glaze. Alright, now we're looking like a little bit of dirty flour here. It does melt fairly well. But if you think the coffee flavor is overpowering, it's really not. It's very subtle. I know that sounds crazy. But with as much sugar and flour and other things as we put in this dough, it really doesn't overpower the taste buds. So now it looks a bit like that. Now I'm going to pop this bowl on my mixer over here. It's fitted with a dough hook. And I'm going to start adding some more flour. Just a half a cup at a time to get us up to that 5. And as you know, we will probably add just a little bit more as we're kneading on the counter. So here we go. Cup number 4. Coming in hot. I really wish you could smell this. The one thing that I associate with my mother, wherever she may be in heaven, is the smell of coffee, because she was always drinking coffee. I think maybe that's where I picked it up from. Miss you, Mama. Excuse if I have any hairs on me. I was holding my grand pig earlier. I'll show you a picture. And she was climbing up on my shoulder, so cute. Alright, gonna pop this on low, just to let that flour kind of incorporate a minute. Then I'm gonna add the other half, run it on low for just a minute, and then pop it up to medium so it can really knead it in there. Okay, the first half cup of flour is almost fully incorporated. I am just gonna add the second half cup. Lower my hook again. Turn it back on low. Once it starts to pick up the flour from the edge of the bowl and it's not going to jump out, you can go ahead and move it to medium. That's about a 3. And I'm just going to let it run for a minute or 2. Don't walk away from your mixer right now, because if you can see without my hand on it, it's kind of shaking. When I get that last cup of flour in there, it will really be rocking. It can come right off your counter, so stay nearby. Okay, my dough looks like this. It's still sticky, still a little bit in the bowl here. So I'm going to lift my hook and add another half cup of flour. This is not the consistency that we're looking for. Like a Jedi mind trick. This is not the consistency we're looking for. You need to add more flour to your dough. Obviously. Okay. This should be our 5th and final cup. I may end up putting it all in the mixer. I may end up putting some of it on the counter. Who knows? It's always a crapshoot around here. Again, just adding half. You can always add more, but you can't take it back out. Put that over there. Lower this. Again, we're going to run it on low for just a minute to let that flour kind of incorporate. Then we'll bump it up to medium. You don't want to go right in on medium, or you're going to have a snowy kitchen. Now when you can hear the mixer really start to struggle, you're going to have to bump up the speed, because it will it will burn out the motor if you keep it on low and expect it to keep moving while it's still all bajiggity. So I'm going to scrape this down really quickly, kind of work what's on my spatula back into the pot here, the bowl. Not pot. It's not a pot, it's not on the stove. And as you can see, it's really sticky around this hook. That's kind of what I'm looking for to pick up that extra flour in the bottom. So I'm just going to roll it over so this floury part is on top. Then I will put this down and immediately crank it right up to medium. Let that pull my spatula kind of clean. Get all that yummy goodness in there. Now this is an enriched dough, which means it's made with milk and eggs and sugar. A lot of sugar. Usually there's butter in an enriched dough, but we're not putting it in here. We're actually going to put it inside. Like I said before, don't walk away from it because as you can see, it's kind of knocking around here. So just stay nearby. Don't want to lose a KitchenAid, or any mixer for that matter. Okay, it's been a couple of minutes and now my dough is not clinging to my hook, so I know it's ready to be taken out. If you could see that, it just kind of fell right off the hook. I don't even need my bowl scraper. I can pick it up. It's still sticky, but I'm going to sprinkle some flour. Not a lot. I still have that half cup of flour sticking to my hands. That's what we don't want, as you know, or you should know if you've watched more than one of my videos. And then we're going to sprinkle just a smidge over the top. We don't want to put too much flour into our rolls. Just going to move my KitchenAid out of the way. Didn't even need my bowl scraper, but I had it ready just in case. So now we're going to need turn. Make sure you have flour on your hands so it doesn't come off. And press. Just turn and press. If you have problems with your wrists, you can knead this way and just squeeze it as you need. You're rolling it across the counter and working that rest of that flour in there. Kneading is important for two reasons. It warms the dough and it activates the gluten in your flour, so you have a nice rise. I don't knead this one for quite 10 minutes, just until I feel like it's tacky but not sticky, like it's not coming off on my hands, but it's still tacky. And it does get a little bit firm on you. So just watch the flour. I'm kneading in the middle of the ring of flour, so if I need it, I can just push it a little bit farther forward to pick some up. If not, I can just stay where the board is clean, or the counter is clean. Not board. It's better to knead on wood, but I don't have any, so granite we have. Granite we shall be. And don't wrap your dough, your hand around your dough, just palm, stack, and push. As you can see, the flour's kind of disappearing into the dough here. And this will probably take me about 3 minutes. So I'm going to do that. I'll see you guys in a minute. Okay, done kneading. It is still tacky, but it's not sticky. Like it's going to stick to my hands, but it's not going to come off on my hands. So it's ready. It actually didn't take any more of that flour on the counter, and I still have a half a cup in my cup. So now I'm going to plop it into this bowl. Roll it around to grease the top, and then flip it over and kind of press it down so I can see when it's about doubled. And that's what we're looking for. Doubled dough. I have a proof on my oven. Turned it on earlier so it would be nice and the right temperature. If you don't have a proof option, you can turn your oven on to low, probably 180, then let it come to temp, then shut it off, then open the door and just put the bowl on the door, and you'll have plenty of warmth, but it won't be too hot. So I'm going to cover that, pop it in my oven, and I will see you guys in about an hour and a half. Got that for now? Hey guys, while I'm waiting on my dough to rise, I am going to go ahead and make my filling just so I don't have to do it later and I can clean up whatever mess I have. You know how I like to do that. I have a quarter or half a cup of light brown sugar packed really tightly. So when I pop it out of there, it actually has the numbers on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, but impressive, right? It was really packed in there pretty tightly. Okay. I also need 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. These are kind of like cinnamon rolls, but not quite. There's 1. And there's 2. Now I don't put sugar in here, just the light brown sugar, no granulated sugar. And then 2 tablespoons of my instant coffee. Yum. If this melts with the butter, so good. It makes this beautiful sticky inside. Can't get enough of it. All right, now using my fork, I'm just going to kind of smash that sugar apart and then mix all of this together until it gets really crumbly. I have my butter over here softening. I'm just going to pop it in the microwave before I use it for a few seconds. It doesn't take it long to melt once it's room temperature. And it doesn't need to be hot. So you want it kind of cooled so it doesn't go crazy all over your dough and make your dough do strange things. Now a lot of people like to brush this with milk or egg before they bake it. I don't. Like after you rise it, it doesn't really need it. But you do have to let it fully rise. And you're going to need a square baking dish, probably 9 by 9, and some saran wrap or plastic wrap, and any brand really, and some no-stick cooking spray, because that's what we're going to use to spray the top of our rolls so they don't get dried out and stop rising. If you bake these too soon, they have this strange habit of the middle pops up around the outside edge of each roll. So you're going to mix until it looks a bit like dirt, like that. And then just set it down and leave it. And then once our bread is risen, you're going to want a very sharp knife. I don't measure mine, so we'll be shooting from the hip. I hope you guys really enjoy that. And I'll be back in a little bit. Bye now. Hey everybody, I'm back. It's been about 1 hour and 15 minutes and my dough has definitely doubled in size. I'll give you a shot inside the bowl. Okay, look at that. It's huge. Now I'm going to just move this out of the way, dump the dough out on my counter. I don't need to deflate it because we'll do enough of that while we're rolling and spreading it out. And what you're going to want to do is, you don't need flour on your counter. Your dough shouldn't be sticky. You're just going to want to kind of pull it into a rectangle shape. I do not measure these. I just kind of go on what I hope is going to be right. And these air bubbles will kind of come out as you roll. So don't worry too much. Keep your damp towel handy, the one you used to cover your bowl while your bread was rising, because you're going to want it here in just a minute. Just try and keep it even. Remember, we're going to make 9 cinnamon rolls out of this, or coffee rolls. I like to just pull it up, flip it over. And stretch it out. Okay, that's probably going to give us 9 pretty good sized rolls. The longer that you roll it this way, you're going to want to roll it on the long end like this. The longer that you do that, the more swirls of filling that you're going to have. So just letting you know that ahead of time. you're gonna make a mess. You can line your countertop with some foil or some plastic wrap if you want to before you roll this out, so there's not as much cleanup to do afterward. We all know how much I love to clean. Now, done with the rolling pin, just gonna pop that over there, out of the way. Now take your rag or towel, give it a little fold, and then lay it over the top edge about a 1/2 inch of your dough. And that's just to keep any of the sugar salt sprinkle that we're about to do here off that edge so it'll seal. I have my butter that has been melted and cooled. As you can see, it's kind of gelatinous. And you're just gonna paint it on with a pastry brush. Make sure you coat every last part of it. This is what's going to melt into your coffee and cinnamon and sugar. It smells so good in here, you guys. I wish we had smell-o-vision so you could get a whiff of this. I think I said that earlier, but whew, it really is to die for. I'm going to go ahead and paint the butter all the way to the edges. We're actually going to go over the edges whenever we put our filling in here, so we get it all through the whole cinnamon roll. Yum! And all the way back to that edge closest to you. Just put it on there thick and pretty. So you have something for that stuff to stick to. Just going over any place where I don't feel like I have enough butter. It's a lot of butter. But man, when it cooks, it just makes for the most beautiful cinnamon roll. Okay, here's what it looks like. Now we're going to sprinkle on that cinnamon, sugar, coffee mixture we made earlier. I have a large tablespoon just from the table, not measuring or anything, and just pick it up and sprinkle it over your dough. And yes, you're going to use it all, and yes, it is going to make a hell of a mess on your counter, because you're going to want to make sure you get it over the edges all the way. These are so delicious. My husband hates it when I make them because he has to eat them for breakfast, he said. I like to make sure it's nice and thick on that front end, just so when we start to roll it, you have a nice, beautiful roll of cinnamon, sugar, and coffee right there in the middle that just, oh, it's so good. These are very decadent, very sweet. If you want, you can top these with a little sea salt or coarse salt. Either works perfectly. I have even been known to throw a little caramel sauce on top. Yum. Because I'm indulgent that way. Just making sure I don't see any of that butter, and I'm getting this all the way to the edges. I'm almost out. And probably a good tablespoon of it's going to end up on your counter if you're going all the way to the edges like it should be. You can see those pieces of coffee. All done. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like. Now you can take off this front piece of cloth and you should have a nice straight line with nothing on it. You just dump that in your bowl. Matter of fact, I dumped all that in my bowl. Now we're gonna roll. Make sure that you're going with a nice tight roll. This is where some plastic wrap on your counter can help you a little bit. You just lift the plastic wrap and it will all kind of roll together. It does not really want to stick. So you gotta give it some oomph. Make sure you're rolling evenly. Don't want weird shaped coffee rolls. Your edges don't quite seem to be the right size. Just pull them out a little bit. You're not going to hurt anything. Once you get it going, you can kind of use your palms and just roll, roll, roll. Now we're going to cut these ends off, so I'm not really worried about how they look. Once you get done, take it up and pinch that seam together, just so it doesn't open up and go everywhere as you cut it. That's why you kept the sugar and the cinnamon off that edge, so it would stick to itself when you rolled it up. I'm going to take this whole thing back toward me, seam side down, and grab a big knife, a very sharp one. And you don't want to press down because that's going to seal the ends of your dough. So if it's sharp enough, it should just glide right through it. And you're going to pop those ends off. Like so. Isn't that a pretty swirl? Okay. Now's the fun part. I have my dish. It's just a square baker, 9 by 9 inch. And what I'm going to do, try to leave that so you can kind of see it right now. What I'm going to do is guesstimate. That's right, I said guesstimate. I'm going to guesstimate how much 9 pieces of this is. So first I'm going to split it into thirds. I'm guessing like here and here. That's a little close. I'm going to go with like here. Okay. Just again, it's just a rough estimate. I'm eyeballing it. And just slice those into 3 pieces. Now you're going to cut each one of these into 3 pieces, and that will give you 9 cinnamon or coffee rolls. So again, I'm estimating. Those are about the same size. They don't have to be perfect. This isn't science class, it's your kitchen. If you're a perfectionist, I'm sorry. It's not going to get you very far in my kitchen. I am a perfectionist in some things, but this is the one place I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let it go. Those look about even. And yes, I'm just cutting right on my countertop because I'm not sawing on the counter. Once I get almost to the end, I just press down and it severs the rest of it. So here, here, that looks about right. I'm usually not too bad at eyeballing stuff. Those years of design school paid off as far as needing to measure and being super, super compulsory about making sure everything is perfect. But it also gave me a great eye for assuming and estimating. So here we go. I'm just going to put these like fatter ones in the corners, like so. Because they'll need more baking heat than the thinner ones. These are the next biggest ones. And then the smallest one, skinniest one in the middle. Okay, there's my pan with my cinnamon rolls in there. They're about the same size. Not perfect, but we're close. This is trash. Throw this away. Just to move it. Now, trusty rusty vegetable spray. If I can even open it. My hands are so slick right now from messing with the dough. All right. We're just going to give that a spray. And then we're going to cover the pan loosely with plastic wrap or cling film or whatever. Just loosely because you need these to have some room to rise. Now they're going to go back into the oven, to my proofer, for about an hour, and then I'm going to turn the oven on to preheat. So I will see you guys in about an hour and a half. We're going to preheat the oven to 350. These take about half an hour to bake, so putting them into proof. I'll see you guys later. Hey everybody, I'm back. This is what they look like when they're risen. And I have started my oven preheating to 350. They're going to be so delicious. They have really filled that pan up and really smashed together the way they're supposed to. This one's a little bit tall, but don't try to fix them because they will deflate and then you'll have a problem. So I'm going to leave this covered just like that, just loosely. I'm going to let them rest while I preheat that oven, then we'll bake them. We'll get to put them on the rack to cool, and then while they're still warm, we'll glaze them and eat them. Yum! I know you're as excited as I am. Okay guys, see you in about an hour. Okay you guys, my coffee rolls are out of the oven. I poked a stick through from the side into the middle. It came out clean, and the internal temperature was about 195. So that's what they look like. Aren't they pretty? Now while I let them cool for just a minute, I'm going to go ahead and make the glaze. I like to put half of it on when they're still a little warm, not hot, and half of it after they've cooled completely. Now I've mixed 2 cups of powdered sugar with a tablespoon of my espresso powder. I grabbed this on Amazon. I think it was around $7, worth every penny. I've used the hell out of that thing. So I'm just going to dribble some of my milk here into the middle and then start whisking. And the consistency we're looking for is like a spreadable glaze, not really pourable. It was almost 1/3 cup of milk. Just mixing it around. Make it happy. Don't just dump it in there because you can't take it back out, but you can always add some more. And I like to sprinky dink these with a little salt, a little coarse salt once I get the glaze on. So that's perfect, actually. Not even just about perfect. It is perfect. Your glaze is going to have this consistency. It's spreadable, but you're really not going to be able to pour it on there and not have it glob up. So I'm going to get a knife and put about half of it on these, and then the other half once they're cool, and I will be back with you guys for the tasting then. Okay, you guys, my coffee rolls are glazed. Don't they look beautiful? And I'm about to give one a try. So I'm going to take this middle one right here. Don't ask. It's just the one I see that I want. There's going to be a big hole in the middle of my pan. They're still a little bit warm, not hot. So good. Let me move this out of the way. Oh, let me show you this. See how it just came out nice and neat? All the whole cinnamon roll and the pieces around it, or the whole coffee roll. I keep calling them cinnamon rolls. I don't know what's wrong with me. They are cinnamon-y, but they are also very coffee-y. We're just gonna fork up a bite with all that yummy goodness. And that little bit of extra salt over top. And it was just a sprinkle of coarse salt. It wasn't like a whole glomming on salt. Now if you find these too sweet, you can cut back on the sugar in the filling, or you can cut back on the glaze. Just don't put it on there. Either way, these are delicious. Look at the bottom of that. That is so beautifully brown. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, I'm sorry. I'll try harder next time. If you subscribed already, that's awesome. Thank you. If you didn't, what are you waiting on? There's a button around here somewhere. Just click it. Subscribe to my channel. There are new episodes every Monday. We will bake, we will cook, we will try stuff from the web. We will have a good time. Most of all, we're just going to relax. It's our kitchen after all. Nobody's going to tell us what to do. Bye guys. See you next time.